Joining me today, I have a Winnipeg author, Robyn Derksen Olfert, joining me. Thank you, Robyn, for taking the time.
Thank you for having me, Sylvia.
Absolutely. I'm very excited to hear about your book. We've got Invisibly Ill and Living with Hope. I think that title is fantastic.
Thank you.
I would love for you to tell us a little bit about it and why you wrote it.
Thank you. So, yeah, I've been living with chronic illness for a number of years now. I've had headaches since I was 7. They became, your eyes just got really big. I've had headaches since I was a kid. They eventually got defined as chronic migraine. And then MS got thrown into the mix when I was 28, just a couple of months after our daughter was born. So that was a bit of a time. And then depression came not too long after that. And then, can we just call it TMI, like IBS, it's 3 letters, whatever. So, yeah, I've been living with chronic illness for a while, and I find people are curious about my situation and don't always know what to ask or how to ask. So, so I kind of wanted to write. It's like, people can ask me if they're brave enough, or like, here, just take my book. But the other thing was I had just read a book. This was the summer of 2022, and it left me really sad. There's a woman who, she is disabled, and she's just been treated really, really poorly. So she came from a place of hurt, and she was talking a lot about the issues and about ableism and inclusivity, which are all really good things. But I wanted my book to be more not like pointing fingers at institutions, but more like, can I show people how they can relate to other people? So every chapter ends with a list of takeaways, sort of some practical ideas, how to apply what I talked about. And I wanted it to be accessible and inspiring, and for caregivers, for people with illnesses, for just people who totally have no idea about any of that and are curious.
Absolutely. The reason my eyes went wide is because about once to 2 times a year, I get a migraine, and I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. It takes me out for 2 days. I have to be in a dark room.
Yeah.
So when you said 7, that's why I was like, that is so hard.
Yeah. And you know what? Honestly, I don't remember a lot of headaches when I was 7, but I do remember the first one. That was significant, I guess. But for sure, junior high and high school, it was terrible. And here's a fun fact. Maybe listeners want to know this. Apple juice can be a culprit. It isn't for everyone. I know, like, what? And this is the weird thing. There's some kind of, the seeds have some kind of chemical makeup similar to cyanide. You can even Google it. And I think you'll even get some, like, reputable stuff. But, actually, a doctor told me that. She also has migraines. And, like, it's not enough to kill you. I mean, you'd have to eat a lot, like a bushel of apple seeds. But, yeah, it was a culprit for me. I didn't know that. I mean, apple juice seems so benign. I had it for lunch every day. And anyway.
Very interesting. I would love to know, like you said, chronic migraines, you have lots of other things going on, and it can be very hard when you have inside issues going on. You can't see it. It's hard for people to know.
Yes.
But the struggle's very real.
Yes.
How do you stay positive?
That's a great question. So I've always had my faith. I've been a Christian. I mean, like, God's never been part of my life, right? And so I need to get perspective in lots of different ways. I have a whole chapter on perspective, and a lot of it is a mindset shift. So going from thinking like this happened, some good thing happened, despite having MS, like it's a surprise. How could anything good happen out of something you didn't ask for? So going from the despite to because of. So I got to, because I was no longer teaching in the classroom, I ended up teaching piano, and I made some really awesome connections with people of all ages, kids, parents. I've had some adult students. I've had some teenagers. I got to speak into their lives, and it was amazing. I'm going to have to tell my teenagers to listen in.
Absolutely. I would love for you to share some practical ways to interact with people who have chronic illness and or disability.
I think a big thing is to be real, to be positive, and to be really to be genuine. Like I can't tell you how many times people have looked at me and found out I have MS, and they're like, "Well, you look good," and I'm like, "Oh, I would like to look good just for me." Like, so just give a genuine compliment, and you don't have to qualify it. It's like I've talked to other people, and they're like, "Are they surprised that I shower?" And well, the truth is, it is a surprise if I shower a lot of the times because the showering is super tiring. The heat is exhausting. So my chronically ill friends, we talk about it. It's like, yeah, people don't see the 5 hours it took to be ready to, be out and about or whatever. But hey, so I'll take any compliment. But I don't know. You want it to be genuine. You want it to feel real. And if you're curious about something, don't ogle like what's going on. And I have an example from before I was ever, I guess I was going through migraines, but not, I had no disability at the time. And someone I saw in a parking lot, quadriplegic, was getting into his van. And I'm like, I just have to know how they do that. Like, what? And I was staring and staring and staring. And now I'm like, I'm just horrified that I did that. Because I wasn't going to help him. I didn't know him. Actually, I did. But whatever. I wasn't with his party. I didn't have to do that. So if you are curious, like I wear a brace on my right foot. And if you're curious about that, if you see that, just ask. Right? I mean, my favorite thing, people are like, oh, what'd you do? Like, well, I got MS 20 years ago, and this is what I have to show for it.
I love that answer.
Yeah.
What'd you do? Well, this.
Well, and then they're like, now I feel bad. But yeah, just be genuine. Just that's the biggest thing. And if you want to help, ask if they want help, and don't assume they need help, and give people time to work out for themselves if they want to. Because often, people with disabilities, they want to do what they can for themselves and for others. We like to open doors for other people. We can serve.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. As you were talking about, taking a shower can be very difficult with multiple things. Then have you found friends and family have helped out in any kind of significant ways?
Well, they haven't had to shower me yet, so that's nice. But family and friends, huge. Like when I first had MS, I had a lot of relapses. I haven't had relapses for a number of years now. But when I did, you pretty much lose the use of my arm. And at the time, I was the main supper maker in the family. My husband was working full-time, like banker's hours. And by the time he got home, it was time for supper. And so we were in a care group with our church, and we had one meal after another brought to us. And it was just amazing. And our family did the same thing. And my daughter asked one day, Mom, whose mommy made this supper? And I was feeling better, and I'd made it. I said, your mommy. And it was really sweet that she could assume that we were being taken care of.
I like that.
Now she's growing up and she's taking care of me. So yeah.
Oh. I love the idea too that, the church coming and surrounding you, right?
Absolutely. Yes. No, yeah, we have never felt alone. And yeah, people have gone out of their way to just be so kind.
I love that. You talk about Job 1, verse 20 to 22. Give me some reference of this verse.
Sure.
And then your view on it.
You bet. So that's the first chapter of Job. And if you know the story, so terrible things happen to him. Like everything is taken from him, his children, his livestock, and then he loses his health. And that's, people are like, they often say, well, at least you have your health, which is like, yeah, but you know what? Job has shown us that it's not about at least you have your health. He at least had God, right? And so before, the end of the story is he gets back more blessings than what he had before. But before that happens, his response is, he says he tore his robe and he shaved his head, both signs of grief, which is something I've had to deal with. I've had to grieve I've lost a lot of stuff, and there's a grieving process. And then he falls to the ground in worship, and he says, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. And then this is the part most people know, the Lord gave and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. And it's been kind of like my life verse. And it's like, okay, well, people were like, well, I can see that. Yes, God has taken so much from you, but he hasn't. He has not taken so much from me. I see what he has given me and what he's blessed me with. And I see that he allowed things to be taken from me, but I don't accuse God of taking them from me. So I relate to that verse just like Job. I see how blessed I am.
That's really inspiring. Thank you. How do you pray for people who are encountering illness?
Yeah, I don't know if you want me to pray for you if you're ill.
Tell me more.
Tell me more. So back in the day, I called for the elders from the church. This was early after my MS diagnosis. I called for a healing service, so to say, whatever, just for them to come over and pray for me. And because of my migraines, they were just out of hand. Like my husband thinks that's more of an impact than MS. Everyone assumes MS is the biggie. It's like, oh, you wrote a book about MS. It's like, well, it's part of it. It's a big part, to be fair. Anyway, but I did not feel at all that I should pray that God would heal me from MS. I don't know why, but it's from the Lord, obviously. But I didn't feel called to ask for healing from MS. But headaches, I've asked for healing a lot, and I've had healing here and there. There have been significant times that God has intervened. But I have seen how God has used MS, and that was what, like early on, I couldn't have seen where things would go or how they would play out. But I felt God telling me, I'm not going to take MS from you, but I'm going to use it. And I am praying he's using it for his glory. And I've just seen how I've been able to connect with other people and relate to them. And so that's been beautiful. So when I pray for people, I pray for God's best for them because God gave me a different ideal than what I would have imagined. And so that's what I tell people. Sometimes a different version of ideal is waiting for you. And so I pray for God's best for people. And if they ask for physical healing, I do still pray for that, but it's not my focus.
I love that. I think it's incredible. It's something that I've put into practice, praying for God's will to be done.
Yep.
Whatever that means.
100%, yeah. Whatever that means. And that's a big thing to ask and to trust him with, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. I have another question, but if you don't want to answer it, don't, because I'm going off script now.
Do it, 100%.
If someone's watching this and they are dealing with chronic illness and they're feeling in despair or they don't have much hope right now, what would you say to them?
I would say that I don't want to use the word normal because it's kind of a bad word, but I would say it's natural and that there will be seasons and that you don't see the big picture. So don't despair. Don't lose hope. But you don't despair. You just said they are despairing. So that might be a little critical, but there is always hope. That's the big message of my book. There is always hope. And that's another little thing, another perspective shift that I've had is I learned from a pastor that instead of saying, oh, if only this terrible thing hadn't happened, say, even if this happens, I'm going to be okay. God's got me. So one day at a time is huge, and ask for help. It's been humbling to need so much help from others, but ask for help and share your story. Be real. You don't have to tell everything to everyone. There's a time and a place, but share your story and reach out and. Yeah, there are support groups and therapy. I'm a huge advocate for therapy. It's been very helpful to have someone to talk things with.
I love that. Thank you so much. If somebody is interested in getting Invisibly Ill and Living with Hope, where can they do that?
RobynOlfert.ca. There's an order page there, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff on my website. So yeah, definitely RobynOlfert.ca is the best place. If you're in Winnipeg, it's free pickup and sometimes even delivery. If you're in Winkler, there's a pickup place there as well. And if you're far away, then it's available anywhere you want to buy a book.
Fantastic. Robyn, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you for having me.